Hi, welcome to the Journey 2020. I'm Charles Morris. Happy to be here with you coming off the weekend. It must be a Monday, somewhere around 7. Um, this weekend, of course, we went forward, and it takes a little while for us to adjust. I'm still adjusting myself. And I actually think that it was in the news last week. By the way, this is the Journey 2020. I'm Charles Morris, where we come to you every Monday at 7 p.m. We've been around since 2013. And the person who came up with the idea and the concept of the Journey 2020 is going to be coming on the show real soon. That's Dr. John Robinson, the clinical psychologist here in the Central Florida area. And we have a very good topic and going to be looking forward to that. And I have a couple of things that I want to talk to him about that he said, oh, that's a good show idea. So that's a little tease. So I'm not going to say exactly what we're going to be talking about, but I'm looking forward to Dr. John Robinson coming on the show. The original concept and idea and who actually named the show. I just added the 2020 because we needed to find a domain name. All the others were taken. All right. But anyway, he's coming on the show real soon. The Journey 2020 is from me to you and so on and so forth, as Dr. Robinson would say, so we can reach a higher source. He came up with that as well. But can you believe it that we're in the middle of March already? I hope that in addition to your prayers, that you are including what's going on with the war and all this other craziness that we go like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? So we're going to kind of cover that too on a later show as well. But just want to make sure that you are keeping all these things and what's going on with the virus and the just regular life. We're just trying to make it through. So anyway, enough with me and enough with what's going on about what I was just talking about. I just called up, which turns out to be a regular now on the Journey 2020, and say, hey, you know what? I want you to come on the show today. Like always, he go, okay, he has no idea what I want to talk about. Okay, so with that being said, let's bring in the guy from Motown City. I call him James Crawford, what his mom named him. How you doing, James?
I'm doing great, Charles.
How was your weekend?
I'm sorry to hear what you said.
No, I was saying, how was your weekend? How was your weekend?
Okay, busy in the yard. Other than that, it's fine.
Okay, well, listen, the reason why I want you to come on the show today is because, as I have you come on and you talk about your book, A Shattered Dream, I want you to take us through, James, if you can, help us how did you make that happen? Because, for us, writing a book for a lot of people seem like, oh my God, this is such a hard thing to do. How do you make this happen? So for those out there who say, you know what, I've been thinking about writing a book, but I don't know how to go through the process and how to make it happen. So can you first, quickly, I want you to tell us about the book, but the whole concept and how you made it happen, that it went from start to writing to the publish. How do we make that happen, James? Help us.
Well, first of all, you have to know what you're going to be talking about. You don't have to do the title first, but you can, and then you go from that. Um, like most people say, when I retire, I'm going to write a book and travel. Well, I did exactly that. I traveled and traveled and traveled. Excuse me, and I finally wrote this book. And I had some assistance, especially from my wife. And I just kind of kept a journal over the years as I was a police officer and all the things that happened to me. And I just started to put them together and add a little glitter or misery here and there, and then told the story. Now, I had a friend of mine who was the librarian, head librarian at Rollins College here in Orlando, Dr. Grant, and he worked with me on it. He had a publishing company, and so I published it through him, self-published through him, and got it on Amazon, got it on a thing called Kindle, and that was it. Now, hardest part, I would say, for those who want to write a book is getting started. And what you need to do is just this: start writing stuff down, or type it on your computer, however you want to do it. And then as you go back, you look over it, more and more things will come to mind. Oh, wait a minute, I meant to say this, I meant to say that. Then you start developing your book more and more. And for me, it took me well over a year. I had a lot of stuff to look for. I had to verify what I was saying, so somebody didn't want to sue me for saying something like not true. And that's basically how I got started. And then I had two or three people to review it and to edit it. Because I don't care how many times you read an article or a book or something, I mean, you write something, I should say, you're going to skip over some words. You'll think you said this. I have stuff like I will say, I just laugh at myself sometimes. I said, well, I went to the store, TWO. I mean, no. And I just do it. I get to writing, typing faster than I think. And I had some classics over the years, but you would do this and you need to go back over it and over it and over it. But you need to take a break every now and then come back to it. And that will be help. And you can take some ideas from friends. You can talk to people. Or you can review what happened with other people. In mine, I had mine all dealt with almost all police officers. So I talked to a bunch of them. Said, "Do you remember this? Do you remember that?" And they recall some things I hadn't even remembered, and I ended up putting them in my book. So it's a long process, but it can be done. And once you get it done, before you finish, let me tell you this: you need to start advertising for your book when it's coming. You know, okay, I'm going to be through by July 1st. Then somewhere in the middle of June, you start putting out little things. Coming July 1st is this and this and this. So people will be looking for it. I didn't do that. I should have, but
Hold on, James. Hold on. You're getting ahead of me, man. You're getting way ahead of me.
okay.
Okay. Let's go back to how do you go about making sure, like, for an example, I want to write a book, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk about how big of a jackleg one of my managers was, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying that the guy was just not a nice guy. He was real evil. He was just, and I'm putting it, and I'm calling him a jackleg. But you know what I want to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, what were you told? How do you go about talking about somebody, and you want to tell the truth? You just giving your opinion. What was it that you were told so nobody could come and say that you slandered them, you talked about them in a negative way, that you now got a lawsuit on your hand? How do you go about telling the truth of what is true to you? You're not necessarily telling it to slander somebody, but you're telling your version, what you went through and how all of it happened. This person just is not going to come out looking like they're a good person because of who they are, but you're just telling the truth. So what were you told on how to handle that?
Actually, I wasn't told. I just kind of did it on my own. Uh, I decided what I want to say about the person and what I didn't want to say. There's some person in my book that I want to say more about what he did, but that would make him the star of my book, and that wasn't the intent. My intent was to inform the people, let them know in a small paragraph or two, or what, maybe it's a page of what happened. But also, the Shattered Dream was a reprint or rewrite of my first book, Officer in Trouble. And back then I used fake names, fake precincts, fake everything. And it was a terrible book. So this time I said, I'm going to use actual names. I didn't use many last names, one or two last, just first names and ranks. And I told it was much easier because you go back and try to remember these fake names. It's terrible. But when you sit down and you write out, this is what happened, then it's easier. Also, if anything I thought was going to be negative, I went to the person and said, hey, I'm writing a book. This is what I'm going to say about you. Do you have a problem? And most of them said, it's your book. Put what you want in the book, as long as it's the truth. So I really didn't have a big problem with that, but you need to check because you can face some lawsuits. Uh, but I just had so much documentation for mine that they really couldn't argue. I had pictures, I had reports, I had everything. So they couldn't really dispute what I was saying. They could say maybe their version was a little bit different, but the basic fact was there.
What was but what was that like? Um, and I don't know how many people you went to say, "Hey, I'm writing a book," so I have no idea. So, what was the some of the responses, and not that they all may have been positive or negative, but can you kind of share with us how did you go about doing it, and what was the normal response or the typical response you had from the people saying that you're putting them in your book?
Most of it was good. For instance, I moved, everybody knows, from Detroit, and I was writing about the Detroit Police Department and some of the things that their officers did there. So I met with a couple of ranking officers with Orange County Sheriff and with the Orlando Police Department. It says, this was happening in Detroit. Does this happen here in Orange County and Orlando? They say, yes, but it happens a little bit differently. And someone says the exact same thing that you went through there is true here. So I talked to them. There's one particular squad I talked about. It was I don't know, I call it a hit squad. They killed 21 people in 2 years, and 20 of them were black. And I went and talked to one of the guys who was a part of this group, this special detail. He and I were classmates. I said, "Greg, tell me what happened. I mean, I'm ready to write a book. What really happened?" And we sat down, and he said, this happened, this happened, this happened. And I ended up putting in my book the way he told me it happened. Because I knew it was happening, but I didn't have any details. And so when he sat down and said, okay, this happened. For instance, the animosity between the white officers and the black officers working this detail was so strong that they actually divided them up. They had, I think, 3 white teams and 3 black teams because they couldn't work together because some of the racial slurs the officers were using, white officers, and some of the way they were treating the prisoners, the officers almost got into, hand-to-hand combat. So whoever was in charge decided to separate them. And so that I didn't know. But it happened, they were doing a good job. I mean, Detroit was in a crime wave, couldn't believe. What they were doing, they were pretending to be victims, and when the guy tried to rob us, they jump up and identify themselves and lock them up. They got a lot of guns off the street. But then all of a sudden, the guy reached for something, looked like he was reaching for something, and I shot him. And that story went on and on and on. And like I said, 21 people in 2 years. And I knew it happened, but I didn't know why.
Now, just out of curiosity, did they come under scrutiny at all during that time, during those two years? Did they constantly make the news? Was they
Oh,
investigated?
yeah. Yeah. They were on
They,
the news all the time. And matter of fact, Detroit's first black mayor, Coleman Young, that's what he ran on the platform. And when he became mayor, he was going to disband this unit. And he did as soon as he became mayor. But there was stuff on the paper all the time. And I mean, some of the things the guys got away with that people were really upset with. One guy was involved in 11 fatal shootings. And he pulled the trigger, killed the person 6 out of those 11 times. And the last one, he actually framed the guy and planted some false evidence on him. And the jury still found him not guilty. And that people in Detroit were in an uproar. And they were ready to go after him. And When the mayor said, "I'll take care of it when I get in office," just put me in office, and I'll handle it. And he did. He handled the squad.
So, did the mayor fire him or something like that? Is that what
No, he
happened
just
to?
expanded the unit. There's no more such unit anymore. He just ended it. He set the office different precincts.
Well, so now putting it together, I'm talking about writing the book now.
Hmm.
Again, people, we're here with James E Crawford from the Motor City of Detroit. He was a police officer for what, 18 years?
Yes.
Right. And he wrote a book. The book is called A Shattered Dream. And so we're talking about the process for those out there who have said, well, you know the saying, James, that there's a book in all of us. and and I know that there are a lot of people who dream of writing a book, thinking about writing a book. And for a lot of us, it seemed like it seems so far-fetched and seemed like it's something almost impossible to do. But James, was it as difficult as you thought it would be, or was it easier? Can you kind of take
No,
us
it
through?
was,
I mean, in your mind, did you think it was going to be more difficult?
no, I thought I was just going to be able to sit down and zip, 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 and that would be it. But no, it wasn't close. You do have to do some research. You have to have, because people are going to ask you questions. And I also had a website, and people could ask me questions about the book on the website. So, yeah, you have to sit down and say, okay, what do I want to say? You have to say, who is my target audience? Do I want this book geared towards 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 50-year-olds? And that will determine a lot of what you put in your book. If I wanted to write a book about, the Civil War, there are too many millennial people who want to read about that. Some might, but they want to know what stuff is contemporary and how they can um, realize this and live in a situation. Oh yeah, I saw this, I did this. One thing I'll say about this book is that when you read it, there is a lesson in there for everybody. I mean, you say, when you read this book, I guarantee you'll say, wow, yeah, that happened to me. Yeah, that happened to me. And I closed out everything, and that's important. You don't just start talking about something and say the end. When I got to the end, mine was a progression starting from the fifth grade. I mean, started, from the first grade, kindergarten, all the way up to after I left the department. It's just a gradual thing of what happened year after year and how I handled it. And that was all a part of uh, putting this book together. You can't just jump from here to there, and because people, well, what happened? Why? How did you get there? You have to just let them know. If it's mine was a combination of autobiography and tell-all book, combination of the two.
Let me ask you this
Maybe one
question.
more thing before I forget, Charles. Well, the first thing that people are going to ask you is, when you write this book, is why did you write it? And you better have a good answer. Why did you write this book? And you can't say, well, I just wanted to do it. No, that's not good enough. You need to have a reason. When they ask you, they do an interview. As a matter of fact, I had a bunch of dummy questions I wrote up. That if I went to a news conference or somewhere, the things that I would want, I would think they would ask me, and I had my answers ready. And sometimes I would, if they didn't ask me, somehow I'd get it out there where they would ask me. But you have to have a concept of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what audience you're trying to target.
Okay, now let me ask you. This is, for some, may consider it to be a sensitive topic or subject. But is there something, and I hope that I can ask this right, James, is there something that you purposely may have left out because it's the police department, or you just couldn't tell it the way you wanted to, so you say, I'm going to kind of leave that over there and leave it alone? Did that happen?
Only one time. Mostly I told just like it happened. Some couple guys that did some things, and Well, they were married and they just did a bunch of things they shouldn't have done. I wouldn't go sit there and say, well, so and so cheated on his wife and so and so. I wouldn't ever do that. But that's the only type of thing I wouldn't put in. Uh, if somebody was doing something that could cause a family problem, something that happened 20 years ago, why bring it up now? So I left it out.
Well, I get that part, but and I hope that I can say this right. Now, I wouldn't mind telling that part of it if it was part of something that was significant to something that happened. Do you see what I'm saying? Because even though it was 20 years ago, and I probably would have not given the real name, but if it happened where it was part of something significant, let's just say, oh, and I'm giving you a far out example. I'm just giving you a far out example. Police officer was fooling around on his wife, and something happened where he got caught, and then there was a fight and argument, and somebody was shot and killed. You see what I'm saying? Which goes back to he did what he did because he thought because of him mindset. I'm a cop. Am I making sense?
Mm-hmm. But I never really had anything. The only thing I had was two officers, actually three officers. One black officer that I came up on the scene. I got called. It was a big fight. When I came up, he was kicking and stomping a prisoner. He was black. The prisoner was black. And the white officers were there, and he saw me get out of the car, and they scattered like roaches. And he denied hitting the guy, kicking the guy when I stood right there and watched him. The two officers said no, they didn't see anything. They were standing right side by side with him. So when I came to the station, I told my boss, this guy needs to get off the street. He's dangerous. And my boss said, you have no reason, because Detroit's a strong union town. The guy that got kicked, he had his head buried in the grass. He didn't know who kicked him. The officers all said no, nothing happened. And you'll never win this case. You'll never be able to prosecute it. And they let the guy back on the street. Well, shortly after I left, I found out this guy shot his wife, his two kids, and then committed suicide. And I tried to tell him he has no business out there. So those are the type of things that I didn't use his name. I think I used no name for that. And the only ones I actually did use the names for, their nicknames, not their real names, is two officers that were under scrutiny because they were mistreating the prisoners so bad. They wore plain clothes for me, and they were mistreating the people so bad. So one night I rode with them just to see, and you would think if you were riding with your boss, you put on your best behavior. But they didn't. And so the next day I told my boss, I said, we need to get ready, put these guys back in uniform for a while. He said, they're getting guns off the street, they're getting dope off the streets. I'm going to leave them out there. Well, again, after I left, they beat a guy to death with a flashlight, and both of them went to prison. So I
Wow.
would say I warned them.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, in your book, uh, or not in your book, but I'm just asking you, can you share with us one of your most scariest moments of being a police officer, an incident that happened that kind of like, whoa, that where your heart was pumping and you was nervous and you didn't know how this thing was going to turn out. Can you share one of those moments with us?
Yeah, matter of fact, it was July 10th, 1971, 72. We got to run on shots fired in an apartment up in a large apartment building. My partner and I were both in uniforms. We had our radios blasted. He had a shotgun. I had a carbine. And we knocked on the door and said, "Police, open up." And somebody said, "I ain't no effing police." And he fired a shotgun blast through the door. Well, what happened, because I'm left-handed, I wanted to get over on the other side of the door. So just as I'm about to go across, the shotgun blast came through the door. It's a wooden door. I got splinters all over my face. And that's about the closest I came to getting shot on the job. But that was scary. I went to the bathroom right after that.
You know what, James? I'd like if I watch Cops or something like that, because cops were around for a while, or even even in the movies or something like that. That has always bothered me. That when the cops are knocking on the door, right, and they're going, "Cops, open the door." I've always thought, like, why are they standing right in front of the door? I always thought,
Honestly, no,
I,
to
I
this
always
day,
thought that was crazy because if I knock on the
it
door,
is.
I'm gonna stand to the side because I don't know if they're going for that mere reason, whether it's a shotgun or they stand there and knock on the door, cops, cops, and I'm like, that don't look like a good idea to me. But I mean, I'm not a cop, but I'm just using some common sense right now because you don't know what's behind the door. And like they said, the guy who said, "You ain't no cop," But anyway, what's up with that?
Well, you know you're not supposed to. I have been retired. I retired in 1987, so you know how long ago that's been. And even today, when I go to visit people, even friends and family, I stand to the side. I never ever stand in front of a door. It's something we learned a long time ago. And we have officers that have been shot through the door. As a matter of fact, I caught a guy. He shot an officer through the door and killed him. And he ran out, and we chased him down the alley, and I helped catch him because his pants fell off. But uh, he knew better. He was on the job long before me. You never ever stand directly in front of a door, and I don't do it. I still don't do it.
Yeah, that's always. I've always watched that, and I'm looking, and I'll be like, I don't understand that. That makes no sense to me. So now, in writing your book, how many titles did you go through before you came up with the one that you ended up with? How many titles did you come up with?
Oh, probably two or three. Two or three. It was a like I said, it was a rewrite of my other book, so I tried to make it close to that. The first one was called Officer in Trouble. This was Shattered Dream. I just wanted to tell what happened. And also, basically, is talk about picking your audience. There are people out here that have jobs and stuff or aspirations to do something, and people try to talk them out of it. And they end up taking a job they don't like. Now, when I joined the police department, I stopped teaching high school. I was a biology teacher. I quit teaching high school to join the police department. People told me, "You're crazy. Why would you want to do that? You know how dangerous Detroit is." But since I was 8 years old, that's what I wanted to do. And I joined just before my 28th birthday. I mean, I waited 20 years. I did all these other little stupid jobs I didn't like. And one day I said, my wife didn't like it and others didn't like it. I said, I have to work the rest of my life. I want to work doing something I want to do. And I did.
Now, as far as the book itself, and I hope that I can ask this correctly. Was it you or was it advice on the flow and the steps as it progressed from chapter to chapter? How did you come up with the progression of the book?
Well, so many things happened to me. That wasn't hard at all. I mean, I got transferred. I think we were laughing about it the other day. A friend, I think I got transferred to 11 different precincts. We only have a 13. Uh, and each precinct I went to, because of, let me back up a little bit further. Before I published the book, when I first joined the department, they were going to have a work slowdown, a work stoppage. And I was opposed to it. And a friend of mine worked for the Detroit Free Press, and he wrote an article. And he wrote an article about the slowdown in which all the other officers in the union were really upset with me. So I was on their list from day one. So anytime I went there, then also I worked a special assignment, which to this day I wish I had never worked, where we arrested a bunch of police officers for uh, dealing drugs and taking payoffs. And somebody didn't ask for, but everybody knew I worked at detail, and what they didn't know is that I got kind of tricked into doing it. I was just out of my rookie year. I just didn't pass my probationary, 1 year probationary. But that was it. And once you get a reputation, I'm gonna tell you something. You're not gonna get rid of it. You're not gonna get rid of it. And officers' minds are so single-minded. If Charles, if you went to a precinct, a new police officer, let's say you transfer from number 10 to number 11, they're gonna find out everything about you before you get there. That's number one. Number two, if somebody says, "Oh yeah, Charles is a stand-up guy," blah blah blah, he can be trusted, so and so, they'll welcome you with open arms. But they say, "Well, Charles is, I don't know, I think he might be a snitch. He's blah blah blah." They're gonna treat you like cold as ice from day one. That's just how, I don't know, simple, I guess I say their mind is. They just, like cattle, they just follow and follow and follow whatever the majority think. That's what they think.
Let me let me ask you this right here. When you think of some of the police officers that come to mind that you say, well, these guys are just not good cops. On the percentage of the guys that, never mind the percentage, but right off the bat, when you go and you reflect back on your friends who were police officers at the time, how many of them that you would say, this is a good cop? This is a good cop.
Not a lot. I'm sorry to say. I'm gonna say probably less than 30%. It just I'm just out there to get a job for the money. The pay was fairly decent. Um, the department was predominantly white, and then was a big issue. And then when affirmative action came in, and blacks and white got promoted one for one, that just blew that whole department apart. And they ended up filing bankruptcy. The city of Detroit, largest city in the country. They wanted to see, they wanted the police department to fail because all these jobs that these white supervisors had are now black guys are now supervisors, same rank. Guys that you kick in the butt now are your boss, and they had a hard time dealing with that. My mother told me years ago, be careful who you kick on the way up because you might have to walk past them on the way down.
Well,
And they didn't like that.
what was what was that like though, James? What I mean, not that you need to harp on that, but based on what you just said, because now I get, I don't have to go into it because I get it, because when you try to deal with reality that now we're equal, or now I'm black and I'm up here and you're down here, the ego, the arrogance already, plus you carry a gun. What was that like? I mean, how did they really handle that?
It was a hard time. They just very disrespectful to some of their partners. Sometimes they were disrespectful to the supervisors, and a lot of times they got disciplined, but a lot of times they were found not guilty. Uh, you know, there's a system. People don't like me to say, but it's almost like a cult. If you can do this, if you can compare the loyalty of the base of President number 45, that loyalty no matter what he does, nothing is done wrong, he can't do anything wrong. That's the loyalty that officers have amongst each other, the union, the prosecutors. That's all in the same bag. You try to buck the system, you're going to pay for it mightily.
What was some of the feedback, or I should ask, did any of your former colleagues, officers, had a chance to read your book, and what was some of the feedback if they did?
Well, there were two sides of it. Um, I got several good. If you go on Amazon.com, you'll see some of the comments from our fellow officers. They loved it. My rating was almost a 4.5, 4 point, whatever it was. And there's some who just remembered how I was when I was a supervisor. I didn't take a lot of the garbage. And they say, I ain't buying this book. I ain't buying this book. And others bought it, and some bought two or three.
But what I mean by personally, I meant when you're talking to them personally and you had a personal conversation with them, what was some of the feedback is what I'm asking. I'm saying, did you have a personal conversation with some of your fellow police officers about the book?
I had several. Matter of fact, what surprised me, there was an officer I worked with. I liked him a lot. And he ended up getting in trouble guarding a drug dealer. I mean, he was a, what do we call it, drug, shotgun, whatever you want to call it, and was protecting and taking his dope from place to place. He got caught, he got fired, he went to prison. Well, I mentioned him in the book, not by name. And he said to me, you know, what you said is true. I have no reason to be mad at you. He wrote one of the best reviews I got. So those child, they know what they've done. They know what they're doing. What they hate, it's like a criminal. Criminal not mad because what he did. He mad because you caught him, and that's the basic thing there. They know what they've done. They know that around me they couldn't say this, they couldn't do that, and they just never let it go.
James, I don't know if this if question has ever been asked to you, and you may have addressed it in the book. But how common, how often the cops go to jail that you work with? How often did they go to jail?
There were several. There were several. Mostly had to do with drugs. A lot of them on drugs, and we had some that were stealing. Had one that worked in my precinct. He was stealing the prisoners' property. You go and take out a few dollars here, a watch, and they set him up. They caught him. When I was a rookie, three of my partners got arrested, and they thought I was from internal affairs. I was the one that set them up, but I didn't. One broke in the car and stole a stereo. One sold some dope to another undercover officer. And what was the third one? He didn't commit a crime. He just practiced as quick draw in a bar and shot a patron in the head. This was my rookie year. These are three of my partners.
Wow.
That's in the book.
Right. You want to know what's funny is we civilians like to think when you see people out and they hold these positions, no matter who they are and what they are, we forget that they just regular people who just happen to have this job. That's the part that we forget. And some of the stuff like that, maybe you understand this, maybe not, right? So we're on the highway, and then you see these two police cars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they go by, flying by, the lights on, woo, woo, the sirens, and then they get off, and then we get off, and we kind of pulled up behind them because we were pretty close to the exit, right? And it was funny because they was racing to see who could get to Burger King first. So it was just that simple. They went flying, man, woo, 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 and then
Well,
as
they abuse it sometimes. There's no two ways about that. And I didn't abuse it a lot, but every now and then before the red light thing came on, I would turn right on red or stop. If nobody's coming, I'd go on through. I should know. I know that, but I did. And a lot of others did. If I hadn't seen anybody else do it, I wouldn't have done it. I didn't do what was going to endanger anybody, but if I'm sitting there for a light and I said, well, it's 2:30 in the morning, nobody here, why am I stopping? And I go through. Now, if I stop somebody else for doing the same, I wouldn't write them a ticket. I really
yeah,
wouldn't.
yeah, because I was gonna say now, as a person, if you try to do that, be like, look, hey man, it's 3:30 in the morning. Ain't no traffic here, so I just turn the light, man, because ain't no traffic, and I'm trying to get home. I'm sleepy, I'm tired.
No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't write them a ticket. Not at all. You have to endanger somebody's life or something, or I pull them over when they were drunk or something, then that's a different story.
Now, I just asked you about one of the most memorable moments in the sense of that may have been scary. Won't you share with us one of the most funniest moments that you experienced as a police officer, something that you really laughed hard about?
I got promoted to lieutenant. I said, one more step. See, anything after lieutenant is appointed. You get test scores and all that stuff and service ratings and all that to make sergeant and lieutenant. And after lieutenant, everything is appointed. You got the rank of inspector, which is now a captain. Then you have the commander of the precinct. Then you have the deputy chief and the chief. And so once you get to lieutenant, then your chances of going up, you could be a lieutenant for 7, 8 years, nothing happened. You go from a lieutenant to commander in maybe 2 years or less. So I wanted to get to that spot, and I finally got there. But also wanted to, even before that, as I said, I wanted to be a cop since I was in elementary school. And when we got sworn in, I stood there and said, I'm a cop. I'm a Detroit police officer. Wow, I got it. I did it. I did it. And that's what I said. I have no idea what I said when I was sworn in. He said, raise your right hand and repeat after me. And I did, but I don't know what I said. All I was saying is, I made it. I made it. Despite all the things that happened, I did fulfill my dream. I became a cop. I just joined the wrong department.
Did you? Well, you say you joined the wrong department, but I won't even ask. Do you think it's any different anywhere else in the country? Because I think it's pretty much the same. It's just, see, you wanted to go work for Andy Griffin. That's
Yeah,
your
that's
thing.
exactly. Yeah,
You wanted to
I
go
want to
work
be
with
Barney
Bernie
Fife's
Fife and
partner.
Andy Griffin.
Yeah, that's exactly.
You should have moved to Mayberry.
Well, I moved from Mayberry to my hometown was kind of like Mayberry. I think I had a lot to do with it. And like I said before, maybe in one of your other shows, that the town I lived in born and raised in was 60% white, 100,000 people. And after I graduated and started teaching, I went to a city that had 1 million and 90% were black. And so Barney Fife did not fit in the Detroit Police Department by any stretch of the imagination. And I could not understand why they were doing what they were doing. I said, this is the way a cop's supposed to be. Why are you stealing? Why are you selling dope? I went to a party once and half the officers were outside the door smoking weed. I said, damn, you lock people up this for every day, and I hear you outside. I couldn't even go in.
Yeah, but they was like, don't you know where I got this from? This was a real good arrest, brother. Want
No, they didn't
some?
say it, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's where they got it from.
Well, as we're talking about you writing your book and trying to inspire people who have been kind of like on the fence and trying to figure out how to make it happen. But you were saying that how did you find your publisher and how, like, For example, give us uh, take us through when you finally said I finished it, right?
Hmm.
Okay, there was a something that said I'm done. Okay, so you can kind of take us there, and then when it was done, take us through where it was handed off. How long did it take? And when you got it and you saw it, walk us through that.
Okay. When I finished the book, I had the guy, that Dr. Grant, who helped me self-publish, introduced me to some different people that could possibly publish it. And there was an Amazon had a company which no longer exists. I can't remember the name now, but they did with self-publishing. So I went with them and worked with them. And also I had a friend of mine who had been writing for years, and she's written plays and movies, and she gave me a lot of help. But another thing you have to look out for is people think you'll sell this book and make all kinds of money. There's some companies, I don't know, it's been a while back since I did this, but you get like a dollar, or you sell a book for $15, you might get three. And the other 15 go, or 13, 12, 13 go somewhere else. And so if you self-publish, most of that belongs to you. Now, a lot of people don't like to deal with self-published books. And if people try to point out, well, yeah, you get less money, but with a major book company, you're going to sell 20 times more books. That just didn't appeal to me at all. Because the ones that want you to go with them, they want a big upfront fee. Well, I'll help you publish and advertise the book. We'll start out with 2,500 and go from there. I said, if I had 2,500, I want to be writing the book. So that's a problem. People say, well, with this publisher and this publisher, but they take a lot of your money. You will not get, I can't think of any publisher I talked to was willing to give you at least half of your sale price. Now, maybe if you're Barack Obama or something like that, you can get a lot more. But if you're not going to get that money. And that's why I chose to self-publish, self-advertise, everything else.
Well, see, James, you said something that was very important, which I know a lot of the viewers and listeners would like to better understand, because that's what you just said is probably one of the most key moments of the interview right now, because now you're talking about money made and money that probably won't be made, and so that's what more people would be interested in. And whether or not you're able to make money. I mean, not everybody will be writing the book just simply make money. But to understand how the numbers work, is that you're saying that self-publish, you just mentioned, but then for a publisher, there you may get out of, let's just say the book may cost $20, you may get $3 or $5 out of the 20 is what you were saying.
That's what you cost. That's what you sell it for. Not what it costs to produce it. It'd probably be less than that. But once you get it done, you made all your bills, you paid this and that and the other advertisement, and you say, I'm gonna sell this book for $20. You may get 7 or 8 with these big publishers. That's all you're gonna get. And then you try to go to the library or bookstores, they only take I'll take 4 copies. And they charge you, some charge you a bookshelf price. They charge you to put your book in their library or in their bookstore. I didn't know that either.
Oh, well, see, you just gave me. I mean, you just told me something that I didn't know. See, so
Yeah.
now I just learned something as well. So, wow. So, again, let me go back to the question again. From the time that you said I'm done, and you handed it to whomever, how long before that book was placed in your hand and you went, oh, there you go?
It wasn't very long. What you do, you make a copy and you send it to the person you want to publish it. And they'll look it over and see if it's suitable and whatever. Then they tell you, okay, yeah, I can print so many copies and this is what it will cost you. And you either say go ahead or don't go ahead. But they send it back to you because no matter how many times you read something, you miss something. And they'll find this error. They'll say, well, you said this here, you said this here later. They don't jive. And then you look at it and say, oh, I forgot to mention what happened in between. So some of these publishers will do that for you, some won't. They just will take your money and go ahead and print it. But like I said, Dr. Grant helped me a lot. And this lady who was a publisher and a writer and screenplay writer, everything, she helped me a lot. And some things I didn't want to say in my book, some things I did not want to leave out. We argued back and forth, like probably a 50-50. Because some of the things I said, well, I want, this is my book. I want to say this, and I will say it. Well, you're going to make a lot of people laugh.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute, James. So go back to what you just said. So you're telling your story, and what is the argument? What is the argument? What
Argument
is
was
it that
that,
she's going back and forth with?
what I should put in it, what I should not put in it. And there's some people say, well, I read that you probably shouldn't have put that in. I had people review the book before I put it out there. Well, I don't think you should mention this. I said, why? Well, I said, I didn't use a name. Yeah, but people don't know who you're talking about. I don't think you should cut that out. And I didn't do it. Some cases I did. One person told me, I wish you wouldn't put that in there because this might cause a problem because they might recognize me from knowing you. So I would leave it out. It was not a book to hurt somebody. And anybody that was going to be negative about, except for the supervisor that treated me so bad, I asked them, do you mind if I put this in my book? And they said no. Or they said, yeah, I wish you would at least change it to this and not mention my name or play it off different. And so that's what I did. It was not a tell-all book. It was in a sense, but it wasn't where I was trying to get people in trouble and say, well, Charles was a terrible guy. He did this, and he cheated out here, he did that. That wasn't the purpose of the book. It was to tell a story about persons who have a dream or aspiration, and you want to follow that dream. My thing was to do it.
So
Do it, do it, do it.
this is your recommendation. This is your
Yes.
recommendation that if you're writing a book and you may be talking about something or somebody, because there's a lot of us are in different places. They don't care to talk to somebody, especially to somebody that they're writing about, but your spirit and your purpose may be totally different. But if your spirit is in the right place and you're trying to do the right thing, then you're suggesting that, hey, you contact the person, and if you just say, hey, let me tell you what I'm doing, and share with them the idea and the concept to the degree that you're trying to let them know ahead of time, and you're asking them if this is okay with you.
I did that with all but one person. And I won't mention him because he's very, very, very well known. But I mentioned it in the book, but I didn't give it much detail because the book was about me, not about him. But I had never been just treated so badly by someone I trusted and worked so hard for. It was just absolutely terrible. And there's a page and a half of the book that tells the basic reason why I did it, but there's so much underneath that and everybody said, well, you ought to forget it, and it's past, it's just wearing you down. Well, I'm doing my best, but I'm not very successful. I see things every day that reminds me of what I was doing and what I was doing for him and places I went to and so on. And it just brings back memories. It's just not easy just to say, well, that just forget about it. And it also cost me a lot of money, thousands of dollars. So,
Isn't it interesting that people try to tell you how you should feel and how you should be, especially when they're not you, you're not them. They haven't walked in your shoes. They don't have your, I guess, your personality, and they're trying to tell you what to do based on their personality and their life. I find that so interesting sometimes because it's not like they can take a step back and just respect you and what you're going through, or what you want to express and what's important to you. They always want to go with what's important to them.
and that was the difference between my first book and the second one. The second one, first one, I was not use any names. I used, like I said, fake names, fake precincts, and I said, no, no, no. This, I want to tell what happened. And by using fake names and stuff, I couldn't really say. And when I wrote about it, and you use your real names, you get a whole different sense of writing. If I'm writing about something that's fictitious, and I don't basically don't care what I say. But when I'm writing about something that's particular to me, something I want people to know, I'm gonna write it the way I want to write it. Period.
Well, James, you just said something that was also very, very important, and I hope people would take note to what you just said about something that's fictitious or something where you're just giving names to, but it brought a whole different meaning to what you was writing and how you felt and your expressions when you're able to use names that were, I guess, that you knew who they were in the sense of their names. You're saying that you didn't mention last names, but you went with first names, and that was your, because
I mentioned I use first name and not last name.
right. You use first names, not last names, but it wasn't a tell-all book. You were not trying to be vindictive towards somebody. You just want to tell your story. And whenever you have been on this show on numerous occasions, and every time that you come on the show, we generally end up at some point in time talking about you being a police officer. And the reason why I like to have you come on the show to talk about that is because you always reveal your heart and your passion as a person that was a police officer. Not that you were a police officer for this and that. Your occupation was being a police officer, but you as a person came through you being a police officer, not the other way around. So that's one of the reasons why I always enjoy having you on the show, because the
Thank you.
first thing that I want people to know that you were a police officer in a real city dealing with real stuff in Detroit City, but yet what you said that you were taught from your parents to be an upholding person and to be kind and to treat people right. And that always came through with no matter what and no matter what you faced, you just didn't deviate any differently than what you were taught from the people who brought you up. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah. And a statement I have in the book is this: is that my greatest uh, asset was also my greatest liability. And that's the honesty and integrity. I It got me in all kinds of trouble, but that's who I am. And I say that right off the bat. This is who I am. And I can tell you, I'm the guy that does this. I'm the guy that does that. I don't do this. I don't do that. That's in the very first part of the book. And people accept me as they do, or they don't. And at this point in my life, I don't. I'm not really concerned about what people think about me.
All right. Well, again, James E. Crawford. He is the author of A Shattered Dream. And I asked him to come on today to talk about the, the very start, the middle, and the end of publishing his book, and to give us some tips on those out there who are thinking about writing a book and like, how do I make this happen? And so I think that he gave us some very good tips today on, and for those who may have questions, um, for James, and for the book itself, always tell people that you can always email me here at the Journey 2020 at gmail.com. And James even said that he has some books that he can give away. And any other questions that you may have for Mr. Crawford, you can email us, and I'm pretty sure that he'll be able to answer those questions. James, before we get out of here, I want to thank you so much for, on a very short notice, to come and help us out for all those books that's about to come, all because of you, James. All those books that's about to come in about another year or so. Is there anything that you want to leave us, any last words before we get out of here?
No, no, I've said enough.
All right, that is James Crawford. He is the author. He is a former police officer from the city of Detroit City. And I was just talking about him the other day. He don't know it, but I was just talking about him the other day. And I was saying that I was talking with him, and I realized that, oh, wait a minute, James was there when all that Motown thing was going on. And I kind of asked him, like, well, James, like, what was that like? And James was kind of like, well, we just turned on the radio, and that was the music. Be like, but it was history making music, James. And I was just bopping to the. Well, anyway, I would love to have him on. And I got another friend of mine named Max. Max is from Detroit as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can get him and James on, and we can kind of share those moments from the 60s when Hitsville took on and changed the world forever with Berry Gordy, and those out there who among my generation, because the millennials have no idea who I'm talking about. They don't know how Detroit City changed the world forever. But anyway, I'm Charles Morris. I want to thank James Crawford for coming on and helping us out to get that book started. And for questions, comments, like always, I do ask that you please hit me up with an email, because I love to hear from you. You may have some show ideas or something like that. And this is the Journey 2020. I'm Charles Morris. And as I always say, the word comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of the Lord. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week. Please keep this craziness and this war in your prayers. Let's just hope that they do the right thing and get this thing finished and done the way that it should have been a few weeks ago. That's just my opinion. Real soon. All right. Everybody enjoy the rest of the week. You be blessed.